Marcus Chen stood in the executive bathroom of Chen Technologies, staring at his reflection in the marble-framed mirror. In exactly 3 minutes, he would walk out of this bathroom as someone else entirely. The $5,000 suit would be gone, replaced by a janitor's uniform. His perfectly styled hair would be hidden under a worn baseball cap. And the empire he'd built from nothing, the company that now employed over 2,000 people, would no longer recognize him as its creator. Someone was stealing from him. Someone was selling his secrets to his biggest competitor. And after 6 months of watching his company bleed from the inside, Marcus had decided to do something no one expected: disappear into his own workforce and find the traitor himself. What he discovered would change everything he thought he knew about success, loyalty, and the woman who cleaned his office every night at midnight. 3 months earlier, Marcus had been on top of the world. Chen Technologies had just secured a $200 million contract to develop cutting-edge security software for the Department of Defense. At 35, he was the youngest self-made tech billionaire in Silicon Valley, a far cry from the kid who'd arrived from Taiwan with his mother when he was 12. Speaking barely a word of English, his mother had cleaned offices to put him through community college. He'd worked 3 jobs while getting his computer science degree, sleeping 4 hours a night, coding in every spare moment. When he finally launched his first software product from a cramped studio apartment, he'd promised himself that one day, he'd build something that would make his mother proud, something that would prove their struggle had been worth it. Chen Technologies had become that something. Glass and steel headquarters in San Francisco's financial district. Revolutionary products that protected data for Fortune 500 companies worldwide. A reputation for innovation that attracted the best talent in the industry. But then the leaks started. First, it was small things. A product feature they'd been developing in secret suddenly appeared in a competitor's beta release. Then proprietary code showed up on the dark web, stripped of identifying markers but unmistakably theirs. Finally, entire project roadmaps, documents that should have been locked behind multiple layers of security, were being quoted verbatim in trade publications, attributed to sources familiar with Chen Technologies' plans. His head of security, Tom Bradford, had been investigating for months. They'd implemented new protocols, changed passwords, monitored communications. Nothing worked. The leaks continued, each one more damaging than the last. Investors were getting nervous. The board was asking questions Marcus couldn't answer. It has to be someone with high-level access, Tom had said during their last meeting, his frustration evident. We've vetted everyone twice, run background checks, monitored emails, tracked building access. Whoever this is, they're either a ghost or they're smarter than our entire security team. That's when Marcus had gotten the idea. It was crazy, probably illegal in a dozen different ways, and his lawyers would have a heart attack if they knew. But it was the only thing they hadn't tried. If the traitor was hiding in plain sight among his executive team, maybe Marcus needed to do the same but from the opposite direction. The transformation was more complete than Marcus had imagined possible. The HR director he'd secretly brought into the plans, Sarah Kim, one of the only people he truly trusted, had created an entire identity for him. Marcus Chen became Mark Rivera, a middle-aged janitor recently hired through the building's cleaning contractor. The uniform felt strange against his skin. The fabric was rough, utilitarian. The shoes were cheap, already uncomfortable after just an hour. But it was the ID badge that really drove it home. A grainy photo, a fake name, and an access level that would let him into every floor of the building except the executive suite. Perfect. His first night was a crash course in humility. The cleaning contractor's supervisor, a no-nonsense woman named Rita, gave him a mop, a cart full of supplies, and a list of 50 offices to clean before 6 a.m. You're on the 12th floor, Rita said, barely looking at him. Don't touch anything on the desks. Don't use the employee break room. Don't talk to anyone unless they talk to you first. And whatever you do, don't be seen. The good workers are invisible. You understand? Marcus nodded, swallowing his pride. He'd built this company. He'd designed the layout of every floor, approved every hire, signed every paycheck. And now he was being told to be invisible in his own building. The 12th floor was product development, one of the areas where leaks had been most severe. As Marcus pushed his cart through the silent corridors, he studied everything with new eyes. The careless way classified documents were left on desks. The sticky notes with passwords visible to anyone who walked by. The unlocked computers still logged in, screens glowing in the darkness. His security protocols looked very different from this angle. It was near midnight when he encountered her for the first time. Marcus was cleaning the conference room at the end of the hall when he heard music. Not loud, but distinct. Classical piano. Something by Chopin. He followed the sound to a corner office and found a woman standing on a stepladder, changing a light bulb while humming along to the music playing from her phone. She was younger than he expected, maybe late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her janitor's uniform was similar to his but somehow neater, more carefully maintained. She moved with an efficiency that suggested she'd done this thousands of times before. As Marcus watched, she finished with the bulb, climbed down, and then did something that made him freeze. She walked to the desk, glanced at the papers spread across it, and pulled out a small notebook from her pocket. For several seconds, she stood there, looking between the documents and her notebook, writing something down. Then she carefully arranged the papers exactly as they'd been, put away her notebook, and continued cleaning as if nothing had happened. Marcus felt his heart racing. He'd found her. The traitor. It had to be. He was about to confront her when she turned and spotted him watching from the doorway. Oh, she startled slightly, then smiled. Sorry, I didn't realize anyone else was on this floor. You must be the new guy Rita mentioned. Mark, right? Her voice was warm, friendly, completely at odds with what he'd just witnessed. Marcus found himself nodding, not trusting himself to speak. I'm Elena, she continued, moving past him into the hallway. Elena Vasquez. I usually handle floors 12 through 15. Guess we'll be seeing each other a lot. Yeah, Marcus managed. Guess so. She gave him another smile and then continued down the corridor, her cart squeaking slightly as she pushed it. Marcus stood there, watching her go, his mind racing. He'd found his leak. Now he just had to prove it. Act 3. The investigation deepens. 10:00:15. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus made it his mission to observe Elena Vasquez. He traded shifts, changed his routine, made sure their paths crossed as often as possible without being obvious about it. What he discovered didn't make sense. Elena was brilliant at her job, meticulous, efficient, thorough. But that wasn't what surprised him. What surprised him was everything else. She read, not magazines or simple books, but dense technical manuals. He'd seen her during breaks, sitting in the stairwell with books on advanced mathematics, quantum computing, cryptography. She worked through problems in her notebook with the kind of focused intensity he recognized from his own all-night coding sessions. She was kind. He watched her help other janitors who were struggling, covering for an older man who moved slowly, teaching new workers the most efficient routes through the building. The other cleaning staff loved her. They joked with her, confided in her, trusted her, and she was careful. Every night, she did the same thing he'd witnessed that first time. She looked at the documents on desks, wrote in her notebook, then continued her work. But she never took anything, never photographed anything. Just looked and wrote. Marcus couldn't figure it out. It was during the 3rd week that things got complicated. He was cleaning the 14th floor when he heard voices coming from one of the conference rooms, angry voices. Late at night when the building should have been empty except for the cleaning staff. He moved closer, staying in the shadows. Through the glass wall, he could see 2 of his senior engineers, David Park and Jennifer Walsh, along with his VP of Sales, Robert Klein. They were gathered around a laptop, and the tension in the room was palpable. This is the last time, Jennifer was saying. After this, I'm done. It's too risky. You're done when I say you're done, Robert shot back. We've made too much money off this arrangement to stop now. One more data package, and then Marcus's blood turned to ice. Robert Klein, his VP of Sales, a man he'd known for 5 years, trusted with some of his company's most sensitive client relationships. That was his traitor. He was about to push the door open, to confront them right there, when a hand grabbed his arm and pulled him backward into the darkness. Don't! Elena's voice was low, urgent in his ear. Not yet. You need more evidence. Marcus spun to face her. You knew? You knew it was them? In the dim light of the corridor, her eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw something other than friendly warmth there. He saw intelligence, sharp, calculating, and slightly sad. "I've known for 6 weeks," she said quietly. "I've been building a case, but if you confront them now, without solid proof, they'll disappear. Destroy the evidence. Maybe get away with it entirely. Trust me, Mark. Or should I say, Mr. Chen?" The world seemed to tilt. "How did you?" "The same way you noticed me looking at documents," Elena said with a slight smile. "I notice things. It's kind of my specialty. And you're not exactly a natural at mopping floors. You missed the same corner 3 times last Tuesday." Marcus stared at her, his mind reeling. "If you know who I am, then you know I could have you arrested right now. I saw you taking notes from confidential documents." "You did," Elena agreed calmly. "And I've been doing it for 3 months. Every night, documenting the data on those desks. Not because I'm stealing it, Mr. Chen, but because I'm tracking it. Mapping out which documents are accessed when, by whom. Cross-referencing with external leaks. Building a timeline." She pulled out her notebook and handed it to him. In the darkness, Marcus used his phone's flashlight to read. What he saw made his breath catch. It wasn't random notes. It was a complete forensic analysis. Dates, times, document titles, and locations, cross-referenced with public releases of leaked information. A network diagram showing the flow of information from specific desks to external sources. And right in the center, Robert Klein, David Park, and Jennifer Walsh. "How did you?" Marcus couldn't finish the question. Elena's smile turned sad. "Because I'm not really a janitor, Mr. Chen. Well, I am. But it's not what I am. I have a PhD in computer science from MIT. I spent 5 years at the NSA doing exactly this kind of work, counterintelligence, tracking data leaks, building cases. I left because I got tired of the politics. And then I couldn't find another job because I was overqualified for everything I applied for and underqualified for the positions that matched my experience. Because I couldn't talk about most of my work." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So I ended up here, cleaning offices, invisible. And I noticed things. At first, I wasn't going to do anything about it. It wasn't my problem. But then I realized I couldn't just stand by and watch someone destroy what you'd built. I know what it's like to start from nothing. My mother cleaned offices too. I know what it cost you to get here." Marcus felt like the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. Everything he thought he knew about this woman, about this entire situation, had just been turned upside down. "Why didn't you just tell me? Would you have believed a janitor?" Elena asked softly. "Even a janitor with a PhD at EDDDHEHE? I needed evidence. Real, solid, undeniable evidence. And I needed to know you weren't involved. No offense, Mr. Chen, but sometimes the corruption starts at the top." Before Marcus could respond, they heard the conference room door opening. Elena pulled him further into the shadows as Robert, Jennifer, and David filed out, their voices low and conspiratorial. They headed toward the elevators, not noticing the 2 figures pressed against the wall in the darkened corridor. Once they were gone, Elena turned back to Marcus. "We have 3 days. That's when they're planning the final. Transfer everything about your defense department project. After that, they're planning to disappear. We need to set a trap, and I have an idea. Act 4. The trap 15/0018. The next 72 hours were the strangest of Marcus's life. By day, he was back to being himself, CEO Marcus Chen, running board meetings and reviewing contracts. By night, he became Mark Rivera again, working alongside Elena to prepare their trap. They were careful. Every interaction looked normal from the outside to janitors, going about their work. But in the stolen moments between tasks, in the empty stairwells and darkened conference rooms, they planned. "We need to create irresistible bait," Elena explained, spreading her notebooks across the floor of an unused storage room. "Something so valuable that Robert can't resist making one final deal. But we also need to control the environment completely. Know exactly when and how the transfer will happen." Marcus studied her notes, impressed despite himself. She'd thought of everything. "You missed your calling," he said. "You should be running corporate security." Elena gave him a look he couldn't quite read. Maybe But there's something to be said for being invisible. People talk around you when they don't think you matter. They're careless. You learn things. Is that why you stayed? Marcus asked. Even after you figured it out? You could have come to me weeks ago. I stayed because I wanted to be sure, Elena said, but also because… She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. Because I liked being just Elena for a while. Not Elena the prodigy, or Elena the NSA analyst, or Elena the disappointment who couldn't make it in the real world. Just Elena, who cleans offices and notices things. Marcus understood that better than she might have guessed. I get it, he said quietly. Sometimes I miss being the hungry kid with everything to prove. Before the money, before the success. When it was just me and my code and the belief that I could build something that mattered. Their eyes met in the dimness, and something shifted between them. A recognition, a connection. Well, Elena said, breaking the moment. If we pull this off, you'll be that kid again, fighting for your company, protecting what you built. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Marcus would accidentally leave a laptop in a conference room containing fake specifications for a revolutionary new encryption algorithm. The kind of thing the Defense Department would pay billions for. The kind of thing Robert Klein and his collaborators couldn't possibly resist. But the laptop would be more than bait. It would be a tracking device. Every time someone accessed the files, it would log their identity, time, and location. It would create a complete digital trail. And when Robert finally tried to transfer the information to his buyers, they'd have everything they needed. The FBI was already standing by, thanks to calls Marcus had made through official channels. Tom Bradford, his head of security, had been brought into the loop. Everything was ready. On the final night, Marcus and Elena worked their shifts like always. To anyone watching, nothing was different. Marcus cleaned the 12th floor. Elena handled her usual rounds on 14 and 15. They passed each other in the hallways with casual nods, like any two workers on different schedules. But at 11:45, Marcus left the baited laptop on the conference table, just slightly open, its screen glowing invitingly in the darkness. Then he retreated to the maintenance closet where Elena was, waiting with surveillance equipment. Now we wait, she whispered. Midnight came and went. Then 12:30. Marcus was starting to wonder if their whole plan had failed when the conference room door opened. Robert Klein entered, looking around nervously. He was followed by David Park. They moved to the laptop like moths to flame. Is this it? David asked, his voice picked up clearly by the microphones Elena had planted. Has to be, Robert replied, already typing. Chen's been working on this for months. If we can get this to them before the final bid. Marcus watched their faces on the small monitor, feeling a complex mix of anger and sadness. These were people he'd trusted, people he'd promoted, relied on, considered friends. Getting the files now, Robert said, transferring to the secure drive. By tomorrow morning, will be. The lights came on. Tom Bradford walked in, followed by two FBI agents, Robert Klein and David Park. You're under arrest for corporate espionage, theft of trade secrets, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The scene that followed was exactly what Marcus had hoped for and dreaded. Robert's face went white, then red with fury. David tried to run and was tackled by one of the agents. Jennifer Walsh was arrested at her home 20 minutes later. Through it all, Marcus stayed hidden. It was Elena who he watched standing in the doorway of the maintenance closet, her expression unreadable. When it was finally over, when Robert and David had been led away in handcuffs and Tom was securing the evidence, Marcus turned to her. We did it, he said. You did it, Elena corrected. I just helped. You saved my company. She shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe, I just couldn't stand watching someone destroy something beautiful out of greed. Act 5. The Revelation 18:20:00. The sun was rising over San Francisco when Marcus and Elena finally left the building. They stood in the parking lot, both still in their janitor uniforms, exhausted and exhilarated. What happens now? Elena asked. Marcus had been thinking about that question all night. Now I have about 1,000 conversations to have. With the board, the FBI, my legal team, press releases to write, damage control to manage. The usual aftermath of a corporate crisis. Sounds fun, Elena said dryly. What about you? Marcus asked. What happens to Elena Vasquez now that her cover is blown? She looked away. I go back to being overqualified and unemployable, I guess. Send out more resumes that never get responses. Maybe try to publish some of my research and hope someone notices. Or, Marcus said slowly, you could let me offer you a job. Elena's laugh was sharp. Charity employment from the grateful CEO? No thanks. Not charity, Marcus said firmly. Elena, you did in 3 months what my entire security team couldn't do in 6. You built a forensic case that will hold up in federal court. You understand data security, human behavior, and corporate intelligence at a level I've rarely seen. I need someone like you. The company needs someone like you. As what? Head janitor. There was pain in her voice now. Years of rejection and frustration. As chief security officer, Marcus said, Tom Bradford is brilliant, but he's old school. You're next generation. You see things he doesn't, and more than that. He paused, trying to find the right words. You reminded me what I built this company to be. Not just another tech giant protecting rich people's data, but a place where talent matters more than pedigree. Where the hungry kids with something to prove can change the world. Elena stared at him. You're serious. Dead serious. Name your salary. I'll match it. Hell, I'll double it. It's not about the money, Elena said quietly. It's about. I spent 5 years being the smartest person in every room and invisible anyway. I'm tired of being invisible, Marcus. It was the first time she'd used his first name. Something about it felt significant. Then be visible, Marcus said. Not as a janitor. Not as someone's assistant or second in command. Be the person who rebuilds our entire security infrastructure from the ground up. Be the person who makes sure this never happens again. Be the person who shows every overqualified, underestimated, invisible worker in America that brilliance finds a way. The first rays of sunlight were hitting the glass facade of Chen Technologies, making it gleam like a promise. Elena turned to look at it, and Marcus saw the war happening on her face, hope fighting with fear, ambition wrestling with self-protection. I'll think about it, she finally said. Fair enough. Marcus pulled out his real phone, his real business card. Call me when you decide. Or don't. But Elena, for what it's worth, I see you. I see exactly who you are and what you're capable of. And I'm honored that you used your gifts to save what I built. He turned to go, then stopped. Also, for the record, I noticed you the first night. Not because you were doing anything suspicious, but because you were humming Chopin and changing a light bulb like you were solving a calculus problem. I've never seen anyone make janitorial work look like quantum physics. Elena laughed a real laugh this time, surprised and genuine. For the record, you're terrible at mopping. Like, really impressively bad. You missed the same corner 16 times over 3 weeks. In my defense, Marcus said with a grin, I was pretty distracted by the beautiful genius, pretending to be just a janitor. The moment hung between them, charged with possibility. Then Marcus's phone buzzed. Tom Bradford, probably with 1,000 questions. The real world was calling him back. I should go, he said reluctantly. Yeah. Elena agreed. You should. But neither of them moved. They stood there in the parking lot as the sun rose higher. Two people who'd found each other in the strangest way possible, both wondering what came next. Finally, Marcus broke the spell. The offer stands. Think about it. I will. He started to walk away, then turned back one more time. Elena, thank you for everything. She smiled, that real smile he was starting to recognize, the one that transformed her entire face. You're welcome, Mr. Chen. Now go save your company, and maybe take a shower. You smell like industrial floor cleaner. Marcus laughed all the way to his car. Epilogue. 3 days later, Marcus stood in front of his board of directors and told them everything. About going undercover, about discovering the conspiracy, about Elena Vasquez. He expected pushback, maybe even calls for his resignation. Instead, the board voted unanimously to implement every security recommendation Elena had outlined in her notebooks. They also approved the creation of a new chief security officer position, with a salary package that made even Marcus's eyes water. The question was whether Elena would take it. She made him wait a week, 7 days of radio silence during which Marcus threw himself into damage control, gave interviews, testified to federal investigators, and completely failed to stop thinking about a woman who cleaned offices and solved impossible problems in her spare time. When she finally called, It was from an unknown number. I have conditions, Elena said without preamble. Marcus felt his heart jump. Name them. First, I'm not interested in being anyone's diversity hire or inspirational story. I do the job because I'm the best person for it. And everyone knows it. Agreed. Second, I build my team my way. I get to hire people others might overlook, the overqualified, the non-traditional, the ones who got told they didn't fit. I get to give them the chance I wanted. Absolutely. Third, you never use the word janitor like it's something less than any other job. Every person who keeps this building running matters. That's non-negotiable. Marcus smiled. Not only do I agree, I want to create a program that identifies talent among all our service contractors. You think a janitor figured out our security problem? Imagine what else we're missing because we're not paying attention. There was a long pause. Then, you really are serious about this? Elena, I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Except maybe the encryption algorithm that made my first million. But this is a close second. He heard her laugh, and something in his chest loosened. Okay, she said. Okay, I'm in. But Marcus, I'm going to change everything. The culture, the practices, the whole way you think about security. It won't be comfortable. Good, Marcus said. I didn't build this company by being comfortable. When can you start? Well, Elena said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. I should probably give 2 weeks' notice to the cleaning contractor. Professional courtesy and all. Elena Vasquez, did you just make a joke? I'm hilarious. You just never noticed because I was too busy being invisible. I promise, Marcus said quietly. You will never be invisible to me again. Another pause. Then, I'm holding you to that. See you in 2 weeks, Mr. Chen. Marcus, he corrected, please. If we're going to work together, I'd like you to use my name. 2 weeks, Marcus. The line went dead, and Marcus found himself grinning at his phone like an idiot. His assistant poked her head in, concerned. Everything okay, sir? Everything, Marcus said, is about to get very interesting. 2 weeks later, Elena Vasquez walked into Chen Technologies, wearing a tailored suit instead of a janitor's uniform, carrying a tablet instead of a mop, but still with that same quiet confidence that had caught Marcus's attention that first night. She was no longer invisible. She was exactly where she was meant to be. And as Marcus watched her transform his company's security infrastructure over the following months, building a team of misfits and overlooked geniuses, implementing protocols that made industry leaders take notice, teaching everyone from the CEO to the cleaning staff that observation and respect were the foundations of true security, he realized something important. He'd started this journey looking for a traitor. What he'd found instead was a partner, someone who understood both the hunger of having something to prove and the responsibility of protecting something worth building, someone who saw value in every person, every perspective, every overlooked talent, someone who made him want to be the kind of leader worthy of the company they could build together. 6 months after the arrests that had saved his company, Marcus found Elena in her new office late one night, surrounded by monitors and security feeds, still working long after everyone else had gone home. You know, he said from the doorway, you don't have to prove yourself anymore. Everyone knows you're brilliant. Elena looked up, and in her eyes, he saw the same thing he'd seen that night in the corridor: intelligence, determination, and something else. Something that made his breath catch. I'm not proving anything, she said. I'm building something. Same as you. Some of us just work better in the quiet hours. Marcus stepped into the office. At least you're not doing it with a mop anymore. I don't know, Elena said with a smile. There was something simple about those days. Just me, my observations, and a really impressive collection of cleaning supplies. You miss it? Sometimes, she admitted. But then I remember that I get to do this now. Build something that matters with someone who understands why it matters. That's worth trading in the mop for. Someone? Marcus asked, moving closer. Elena stood, and suddenly they were face to face across her desk, the city lights of San Francisco glittering behind her. Don't make me spell it out, Chen, she said softly. I'm brilliant. But I'm not that brilliant when it comes to this. To what? To whatever this is. Between us. This thing that started when I was trying to save your company, and you were pretending to know how to clean floors. Marcus laughed. In my defense, I was very distracted. By what? By you. by the woman who changed light bulbs, like she was solving the secrets of the universe, by the genius who stayed invisible because she couldn't find any other way to use her gifts, by the person who reminded me why I started all of this in the first place. Elena's breath hitched. Marcus, I know, he said quickly. I know we're colleagues now. I know there are 1,000 HR policies about this. I know it complicates everything. But Elena, I can't stop thinking about you. Haven't been able to since that first night. And if there's even a chance that you feel the same way. She kissed him. It was sudden, surprising, perfect. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena was smiling. I feel the same way, she said. I've felt the same way since you offered me this job without knowing if I could actually do it. Since you looked at an overqualified janitor and saw someone worth believing in. Since you proved that sometimes the system works exactly the way it's supposed to. To the brilliant outsider gets noticed, the traitors get caught, and the underdog gets her chance to change the world. We're going to have to fill out so many HR forms, Marcus said. Worth it, Elena replied. And there, in the office she'd earned through brilliance and determination, overlooking the city that had tried so hard to overlook her. Elena Vasquez and Marcus Chen started building something new. Not just a company, though Chen Technologies would go on to become the most secure and innovative tech firm in the industry. Not just a security protocol, though Elena's methods would be taught in business schools and intelligence agencies worldwide, but a partnership built on mutual respect, shared struggle, and the revolutionary idea that the most important people in any organization are often the ones nobody's paying attention to. The ones who clean the floors and notice everything. The ones who work invisibly until someone finally takes the time to really see them. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, those invisible people change your entire world.